Hey, welcome to Let the Light In. Today we've got the Viltrox Lab Series. This is something brand new for them. Their Lab Series, it's kind of like the professional, higher grade level of lenses. So Viltrox Lab 135mm f1.8, and this is an autofocus lens. The price point of this lens is $899. You can get it now. Something to keep in mind as we review this lens here today is that Sony has their G Master 135mm f1.8. That comes in at $2,100. And also Zeiss has a 135mm f2.8 lens, and that comes in at $1,750. But back to the Viltrox 135. This is a full frame lens. It has an aperture range of f1.8 all the way to 16. It comes with a VCM autofocus motor that is a voice coil motor. This is the lab version, so it's the premium grade of Viltrox, and Viltrox has steadily been improving their line of lenses over these past 3 years. It does have a USB-C port in the back for future firmware updates. It's got a very effective weather sealing ring in the back as well, and 82mm is the filter thread size for this lens. Now, let's take a closer look at the lens body itself. This lens is huge, it's heavy, it's coming in at 145 centimeters long and 9 centimeters wide. So it's going to neither be light in your hand nor in the bag. Now, other than the weight, because 135 f1.8 lens is always going to be a bigger lens, that's where my critique ends for this lens body and the lens construction. It has a click declick options for the aperture ring. It has an AF/MF switch for quick focusing swapping options. It also comes with focus range options, so you can select the full focus range, 0.2 meters to infinity. You can select just close-up focusing, so 0.7 to 2 meters of distance. Or finally, what you may find yourself selecting is the third and final option, which gives you a focus range of 1.5 meters to infinity. Finally, there are two focus hold buttons located both on the top of the lens as well as the left side of the lens. So if you're shooting, landscape or portrait, then it's got two focus hold buttons easily accessible for you. Something I almost never comment on is actually the lens hood. This lens hood is of the same quality of the Sony G Master line. It's got a rubber end on the top here to help with any impact damage or any impacts that it may take. And then finally on the inside, I wouldn't necessarily call it felt. I don't think felt is the right name for this material, but it's got some kind of soft material on the inside of its lining. So really nice lens hood as well. This lens body finally features a screen on the front here, and that you can update that screen to feature, for example, a custom logo that will show on startup. More importantly, during its actual functions, it's going to show both your focus range and where your aperture is at. So it is actually useful. Now, the aperture ring and the focus ring is a very smooth rotation all the way around. I would say that it was about medium to light damping on it. For the aperture ring, in clicked mode, when we turn the click on, then it's quite a quick repetitive click. There's that. Turning that click off, rotation is good. Not as well damped or smooth as the aperture ring, but it's certainly not poor by any means. Let's talk about autofocus. So I tested the Viltrox 135 autofocus both on the Sony A7 IV and the Sony Alpha 1. And a little bit of discussion that I want to have here is the reason I tested it on two Sony bodies is because on my Sony A7 IV, in a previous firmware version, there was a problem where on autofocus continuous, the lens would find focus and then it would essentially pulse in and out, in and out, in and out repeatedly and not steady itself on a certain focus point, on the focus subject. So at that point, in that firmware version, it wasn't having that issue on the Sony Alpha 1. So I tested on the Sony Alpha 1 and autofocus was smooth, quick, and reliable, and it found its focus points every time, even in focus pulling in a variety of scenarios that I tested it in, it was effective and reliable. Now, other reviews that you may watch, if they tested it on a Sony A7 IV or A7 V, something like that, then they may report that autofocus was an issue. But I can tell you, I'm redoing this bit of autofocus. I had my review done. I'm coming back redoing it right now because as of Friday, pre-release, Viltrox has released a new firmware update for the 135mm lens, version 1.15. And on this version of the firmware, Sony A7IV no longer has that issue of pulsing. So my final say for the Viltrox 135 autofocus on all Sony bodies, from my experience, is that autofocus is smooth and reliable. You'll see right here at f3.5, I believe it is, on face tracking through both hot spots and dark spots of lighting, that focus holds very nice all the way through. It reacquires focus smoothly as well, and both dropping in and out of the frame while being close up to the lens, it reacquires the focus very nicely. So all in all, autofocus is smooth and reliable on the Viltrox 135. Now, focus pulls in the 0.7 to 2 meter range. Focus pulls within this range were accurate and they were precise. Moving on, chromatic aberrations. I didn't have any problems here. In fact, the footage looks wonderful. It comes back incredibly clean. You will not have to worry about chromatic aberrations whatsoever. A very impressive performance there. In conclusion, the Viltrox Lab 135 f1.8 is an incredibly well-built lens. I can genuinely, having handled Sony G Master lenses, I can say this is completely akin to the G Master line. You're getting the same type of build quality. Yes, I don't, one complaint I do, everyone's probably gonna have about it, is the size and weight of the lens, but ultimately I'm not gonna harp on that too much because you're getting a 135 1.8 aperture lens, it's gonna be sizey. So I'm not gonna harp on it too much. Yeah, it's big, it's a little bit heavy, but look at the value that you're getting out of it, both in price point and in image quality. I mean, you never have to worry about chromatic aberrations, for example. If your camera body has IBIS in it, then this is going to cooperate effectively with IBIS. Of course, we are a video-centric channel, and so for video production, obviously you're going to want to be using a tripod as much as is possible. Its wide open aperture of f1.8 makes it usable in a wide variety of lighting scenarios, so it makes it a very versatile lens. All in all, this is really an outstanding lens, and its autofocus upon the firmware update. You may have to do that personally upon receiving your lens. Do the firmware update. It's very easy to do. All you have to do is plug your lens directly in, USB-C port, USB-C, wire into a wall outlet, power it on that way. Open up your phone to the Viltrox app, connect it via Bluetooth. It's easy, it's gonna find it automatically for you, and update it to 1.15, and autofocus is smooth, quick, and reliable. It's what you want on the Sony platform, and it's up to that Sony standard. So all in all, an incredibly outstanding lens, and something that I think we need to talk about is that Zeiss has a 135 f2.8 coming in at $1,750. Sony has their G Master version of this lens, 135 f1.8 G Master lens, for $2,100. The Viltrox is cutting that price in half and then some a little bit. And the only price competition for the Viltrox 135 is the Samyang 135 f1.8, and that's coming at $760. So ultimately, this Viltrox 135 f1.8 Lab series is absolutely outstanding. You're getting a G Master quality lens for less than half the price. Yes, it may be a little heavier than the G Master, but it's going to make your pocket heavier as well because you're not going to be spending as much cash. And something I do want to let you know about is if you go and you order off the Viltrox store and you use the code Craig, capital C-R-A-I-G, you throw that in as a coupon, you will receive an 8% discount. And I believe, I don't believe I'm mistaken on this, but I do believe that for a certain range of dates, I believe it's November 4th to 10th, you can actually receive a 10% discount if you order with that coupon on the Viltrox store. So if you want to purchase this lens, the links are down below. Incredible lens, very impressive. That is your review for today. A very impressive Lab Series lens from Viltrox, who continues to push the boundaries. That's all I have for you today. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, and remember to let the light in.